Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Adam Dorsey, a psychologist in Silicon Valley and the host of Super Psyched, a podcast dedicated to supercharging your life. Each episode contains fun, high-quality interviews with experts looking at psychology from all angles. Super Psyched is your tool to get more of what you want in your life and less of what you don't. Regardless of who you are or where you live, one thing all 7+ billion of us on Earth have in common is the restriction of time. None of us has more than 168 hours a week. And yet, how we use that time can be the difference maker in the quality of our lives. Do we ever take time to reflect and ask ourselves, how am I allocating my time? Or might there be a better way of doing some of my daily tasks? My guest, Nick Sonnenberg, is a former Wall Street-based high-frequency algorithmic trader. He has a master's degree in financial engineering from UC Berkeley, and he is the CEO and co-founder of Leverage, a company that helps businesses maximize their time and efficiency so they can focus on what matters to them. He is also the co-author of a great book called Idea to Execution, as well as the author of an upcoming book called Come Up for Air, releasing in February 2023. We talk about time management and tools that help us in business and our personal lives so we can all focus on what matters to us. We also touch on the importance of properly taking a break and looking at time in a non-linear fashion, and you'll soon come to understand just what he means by that. So listen in as Nick and I geek out to tools and ideas for managing time. Nick Sonnenberg, welcome to Super Psyched.
Thanks for having me, Adam.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. I loved your book, and I can't wait till your forthcoming book comes out, and we'll be geeking out to that at a later date. But for now, the fact of the matter is all of us are constricted by the same thing, and that is time. Nobody has more than 10,800 minutes per week. That is what we've got. And we can lose our health, we can get it back. We can lose our money, we can get that back. We cannot lose our time and get it back. And it would appear that you have come up with so many structures for really managing time, optimizing flows. You're using your scholastic and mathematic background. One of the first things I want to bring up is something that appears paradoxical in nature, and that is that we derive a lot of dopaminergic pleasure from doing kind of grunt work because we feel like we're being efficient. And yet we know that if we can optimize that and maybe even find ways to outsource it or to come up with electronic solutions for that grunt work, we will save time. And yet there may be initially a resistance because there is so much pleasure in doing and feeling like we're being efficient, even if we're not. I was wondering if you could speak to that paradox for a second.
I think what you're describing is the Zeigarnik effect. I mean, people just love that feeling that they're getting stuff done. But I mean, what you said just earlier, it's kind of like my main pitch when clients are coming and asking, what do you do? It's, yeah, exactly what you said. You could go bankrupt, earn your money back, but time, once you lose it, it's never coming back. So it's literally our most precious asset that you need to protect and optimize because you can never get it back. So I am passionate and obsessed with making sure that people utilize this scarce resource as best as humanly possible. And ultimately, I want my contribution to the world to be that I've given back millions and millions and millions of hours to society so people can do things that either give them joy or tap into their unique ability and not just be doing crap that add zero value to themselves or to the world or to their business.
You've moved the needle so quickly relative to your age and relative to your career. And it seems that one of the reasons is that you are so passionate, to use kind of a Simon Sinek term, about your why. You really care about why you're doing this. And it sounds like a big part of your why, your North Star, is I want to save people time.
Yeah. It just bothers me. Like, for whatever reason, when I see someone wasting time, it just gives me anxiety. I mean, a juice generation, it's a smoothie place here in New York. They put the trash can on the wrong side of the bar. So every time they peel the banana, they have to walk down and throw the peel. And it's only a second or 2 seconds to do it. But like, think about how many bananas they peel in a day. Then I start thinking to myself, man, That's like 2 seconds a banana. They must be doing like at least 120 bananas or something a day, maybe even more. So it's like, man, they probably wasting like 4 or 5 minutes a day. Like by the end of the week, it's probably like 20 minutes a week for that guy. By the end of the month, it's probably like an hour and a half. By the end of the year, like we're probably talking 15 to 20 hours just because they put the trash can on the wrong side of the bar. And then I start emailing like the CEO because it's bothering me, or like that's happened at JFK at coffee shops where like lines accumulate and you know that everyone wants a shot of espresso. So just keep pumping out the espresso while there's a line. And they would be making more money and saving people time. And like when I see that inefficiency, I just get bothered. And aside from me getting bothered, though, I see with my own experience working with clients in my team, it's not just to help the business when you make people more productive, it's helping the individuals too, because people are burning out left and right, and they're burning out unnecessarily. They don't need to be working as hard as they're doing. So it's not just giving back to society and organizations lots of hours, it's also reducing stress and burnout that is largely caused because of inefficiencies that can be avoided.
And somebody listening might even come to the erroneous conclusion that what you're looking for is automation of humans, and getting rid of the banana peel problem is going to make us into robots, when the truth is we get to rock our genius when we save time. And I love the ideas that you bring forth around Kaizen, the Japanese idea of really looking at small practices that optimize and just over time, like these little tiny tweaks that seem unnecessary or maybe even just kind of so tiny that they're so minuscule that they don't even matter, except that they do matter over the course of a week, a month, a year. They save time. They allow people to rock their genius. What are your thoughts on that?
In my past life, I was a high frequency trader. And high frequency trading basically means I'm a mathematician by background. So I would build algorithms and code computers to trade stocks programmatically based off of my algorithms. And we would be doing it at very high speeds. We're looking at nanoseconds and microsecond type of stuff, trying to capture fractions of a penny of discrepancy. And so in that job, I really developed this skill of looking micro, and because we're trying to shave, oh my God, if I do it this way, we can shave off a microsecond. Who the hell normally would care about a microsecond? Well, that could literally mean the difference between making $1 million and losing $1 million in a strategy. So I've developed this unique kind of lens that I look at everything through, where you have to celebrate the small wins. And I think too many people are looking for quick wins. And usually when we look at companies, there are some big low-hanging fruit opportunities. Usually the way people do meetings is completely broken. And if you just clean that up and kind of audit how the meeting's happening with agendas and what could be asynchronous and time of day and number of people on it and pre-work, that could be millions of dollars, just that one strategy. But by and large, to be efficient, it's really the sum of small gains. And back to the banana peel example, that sounds stupid. It's like a 2 second per peel. But when you think about the number of peels that person does in the course of a year, and then that comes out to say 15 to 20 hours times their hourly rate, even if it's $20 an hour, we're still talking $300 to $400. That's just one employee. If they have 1,000 employees, it starts becoming meaningful. And that's just one of maybe 1,000 micro efficiency gains that you can find. And so I think that a lot of people are ignoring or not acknowledging the significance at scale. They just say, oh, but that only takes 2 seconds. And they don't go a step further to think about the compounding effect of, well, how many times does that event actually happen in the course of a year times number of employees times the average hourly rate? What does that add up to? And when they start going through that, and it's not complex math, we're just talking addition and multiplication to kind of get to the result, people start getting shocked. Like, oh my God, I can't believe that the trash can is costing me $500,000 of profit impact just because I put it on the wrong side of the bar.
There's so many reasons why I feel like you and I are related. You and I are both number geeks. We care about such things. And I think about that commonly asked question in math class, when am I going to use this? And the joke is most people don't. Most people should, and they don't. I shave every day, pretty much every day, maybe a day off, one day a weekend. That comes out to 2 minutes a day, approximately 2 to 3 minutes. So let's say I do that 330 days a year. Those 2.5 minutes come out to about 825 minutes over the course of a year. And that is a lot of time. That's about 13 and a half hours a year spent shaving. And I think about the fact that there are so many inefficiencies in our life, and I'm going to continue to shave, but they're probably beyond the business sphere where people frequently allocate time. And if they actually saw on a spreadsheet what that time allocation looked like, they might think twice about how they were using their time. What are some common muggle human places where we waste time and what can be done?
Yeah. And I think that the key is just becoming aware of where you're spending time. So easy to just fall into the trap of getting used to doing things. And then you stop becoming aware that you're actually investing time doing it. So before answering that, the punchline, are you going to get a beard? So then you're going to say,
I'm not growing a beard, bro. That's not happening.
I mean, look, do you enjoy shaving? Is it a relaxing activity for you?
Quite frankly, if I could get it lasered off, I probably would.
Well, that's one thing. Some people enjoy shaving and activities, and that's great. And like, let's not touch that stuff. But to answer your question, let's just take Uber, for example. Even if you live in a city with a car and you're like, oh, well, I have a car, I'll just drive to this place versus taking, and now let's just assume you don't have a Tesla. So the argument about self-driving, yeah, we ignore that for a second. Should you take an Uber for $20? Well, you have a car here. Maybe you could save the $20. All right. Well, what's your time worth? And what could you do in the back of that Uber on phone calls, recording video, writing emails? What's that worth versus the cost of an Uber? Most people aren't properly thinking about that. Like if you're charging $100, $200, $1,000 an hour, even if it's $50 an hour, if you can make good use of your time in the Uber. Now, if you're just going to sit there and do nothing, that's a different thing. But if you are motivated to actually make use of that time, and there's plenty of things that you can be productive in the back of an Uber that will generate more than $20 in that ride. I've taken long rides before. I was in Bali a couple years ago and I had a long ride, like an hour or two, no Wi-Fi. So I recorded video messages to each team member on my team, 5 to 10 minute videos on what's on my mind, what I'm thinking, anything about stuff that we needed to chat about anyway. And when I got to the hotel with Wi-Fi, I sent all the videos. So I essentially got an hour and a half, let's say, of conversation done in that Uber just asynchronously. And then they got it when I got there. If I would have driven, I wouldn't have been able to do that. And then I would have had to have used my own time, an hour and a half on the calendar where I could have been paid by a client to do the same thing. It's like buying money at a discount or buying time at a discount when you think of these things. We were chatting earlier about raking leaves. If you don't like raking leaves and you can solve that problem for $20, $50, whatever it costs, even if you're not during that same period of time doing an activity that's generating you immediately more than that, even just relaxing is a benefit because maybe you're preventing burnout. So then you could be fresh for Monday. So then you can go and crush it on those paid things. So I think another misconception is people are thinking, oh, well, I'm not going to be doing anything anyway during that time. Well, there's only so much time you have to relax. Like maybe watching a TV show or reading a book or like talking with your kids or your wife or your friends. You don't get all that much time for those things. So like maybe you should take advantage of it then. So
I couldn't agree more, dude. I mean, the diminishing returns and not finding time to allocate towards making those videos or perhaps even meditating. A person could meditate during that Uber ride and it would be easily worth the $20 allocated, especially if they consider what their hourly rates are, if they exceed that.
Yeah, just like thinking about it as like you're investing kind of like in your future energy levels when you do it. And what's that investment worth to you? And most of the time, people aren't thinking about it properly. So they're working 50, 60-hour week, stressed out, and then they're going and raking leaves and doing other stuff on the weekend. And then in the end, it's like you don't have any time to actually unwind. And that's really important too, so you don't burn out. And time isn't time. Like if you're working a 60-hour week, but you're already burnt out, that's far different. You probably get done a fraction of what you would get done 40 or 50 hours, but you're energized and refreshed.
Couldn't agree more. And one of former podcast guests and one of my favorite thought leaders is Tiffany Schlein. She actually created the Webbies. You may remember those awards, kind of the Academy Awards for the web. And She wrote a book called 24/6, The Importance of Taking a Full Tech, what she calls a tech Shabbat. It's the day of Sabbath, a day of rest, one day a week, so that we can actually refresh, unplug, and be more productive during our on time. One of the things that I've identified is what I call non-rejuvenating rabbit holes. We tend to not use our time well for rejuvenation. We go for the low-hanging fruit. We might stream something while being on our phone, while eating something and petting our dog simultaneously, doing none of those four things very well at all. But one of the things that we can do is something really pleasurable, something really deep and fun, maybe some barriers to entry because they may require a little more effort than just kind of going for the low-hanging fruit and just streaming something. But going out for a walk, meeting a friend for coffee, curling up with a good book and doing nothing else except reading the book, perhaps with my cat on my lap. Those can be really rejuvenating versus things that we tend to grab for during that off time. And we tend to maybe even undervalue the relevance of that off time and think that we must be productive. What are your thoughts on rejuvenation and diminishing returns if we don't get it?
Well, I think it's critical, right? And I get it. It's not easy. I'm a workaholic. I'm also very efficient, but I run my own company and I'm obsessed with this stuff. So I have to put guardrails on myself. Otherwise, I could work way later and wake up way earlier than I want. So I've architected a schedule that kind of forces me to be a bit more balanced in the short term, maybe in a 1 week to a month period. If I was optimizing for how much can I get done in a week or in a month, maybe I would do that. It matters what you're optimizing for. I'm optimizing for the long term. How can I kind of keep this up, be energized, not burn out, and play the long game with it? So I'll wake up 6 and do a bit of journaling and work out and get some other stuff done and shower and get ready and typically not do calls before a certain time and try to force myself to stop by about 6 or 7 and not go too late. And, I'm not preventing myself from burning out. I'm probably getting done still 90% of what I would get done if I were to push it and add another couple hours. And yeah, I think over the course of a 5-year period, or 10-year period, I'm going to get done a lot more than if I were, not investing in that rejuvenation.
I think that an overlooked concept is that we are actually in relationship with our work, and we have a relationship. It can be a relationship filled with pleasure and looking forward to it. It could be dread. And
it's usually an unhealthy relationship.
Yeah. So it sounds like that putting up those guardrails keeps you in a good relationship with your work so that the workaholism doesn't take over and sabotage your relationship.
I think that there's kind of like 3 aspects with work you have to think about. Like one is the guardrails, but that's not enough because if you're supposed to hit certain targets and you're off, what are you supposed to do? Are you supposed to still just shut your computer off at 7 and just not hit the targets? Whoever said it. So I think that one, you have to have reasonable expectations of yourself. And if you work for someone, you have to mutually kind of come up with what's reasonable. 2, you need to be also efficient. I think a lot of people work 20 to 50% harder than they need to because they're inefficient. So one is, are you moving in the right direction? And then 2 is, are you moving in that direction as fast as you possibly can? And most of the time the answer is no, you're probably only moving 50 to 70% of what you could be moving. And then as long as you have a clear direction and you've got a good strategy of how you're going to work and there's not that much slippage in your work, then, it's very reasonable to say the guardrails. If you're inefficient, it's going to be tough to accomplish all of it if you're not efficient with clear expectations, a reasonable understanding of what can get accomplished, because it's hard to put guardrails if you know that you're going to kind of fail at what you're supposed to be hitting.
Yeah, it's really deflating, the dread of failure in the future. I'm wondering, what are some great tips that you've gleaned over the years? We'll get into tech in a minute, but I actually want to just talk about some non-techie tips that people can use either for guardrails or for better using their time.
I think conceptually, one thing that people could understand is that time isn't linear. You opened up, and I loved it, 10,000 something minutes in a week. What's the number?
10,800 minutes, I believe, if it's 60,
yeah.
60, yeah.
Yeah. So you have that many minutes, but not all those minutes are worth the same. You have 24 hours in a day. Not every time slot is worth the same. 9 a.m. on a Monday after you've just relaxed over the weekend and you've woken up and you've worked out and had that coffee, your brain is going to be at a different level of horsepower than 7 o'clock on a Friday after an exhausting week and your 12th Zoom for the day. Your brain will be in a different state and at different horsepower. And so if you're thinking about kind of what's the value of that 9 a.m. on a Monday time slot versus 7 p.m. on a Friday, most people talk about their hourly rate as a constant. Oh, I charge $2,000 an hour for my consulting or whatever the number is, $100 an hour, whatever. In reality, yes, like, because you can't say, well, it matters. Do you want me at 9 a.m. on a Monday or do you want to hire me at
do you want the best
4 p.m. on a Wednesday? What kind of horsepower are you looking for out of me? So like, obviously that's not reasonable to have like 20 different hourly rates with all these like conditional logic requirements. But in reality, though, it's true. Not all of our time slots are worth the same. And just being aware of that and being able to future predict where, in general, where do I think my horsepower is going to be on this day at this time? So right now we're recording this. I haven't had that many calls for the day. It's kind of like right in the middle of the day. I knew that I'm going to have good horsepower for this call. If you would have caught me on a day that I had 10 or 12 Zoom calls already, and then we do this, it would be a different conversation probably. I'd have Zoom fatigue and be a bit more tired. So I think people without any tech can just understand that one concept, understand that maybe time is $100 an hour overall, but maybe there's certain time slots that are worth $200 or $300 an hour, and then other time slots that are worth $20 or $50 an hour. Maybe when you're in the back of an Uber, you can still get some stuff done, but you can't use a laptop and do other things. You can make it valuable, but maybe it's not as valuable as other time slots when you will have your laptop. See what I mean? If you're driving the car, maybe it's worth $20 an hour to you, versus if you're in the back of an Uber, maybe it's worth $100 versus that same time slot. If you're at your desk with a coffee, maybe it's worth $200. So it's that same hour, but it has different values depending on the context of what's happening just before and during that time slot. Does that make sense?
100%. Love that idea. And I think this is going to be so useful. I was just talking to a CEO who is trying to figure out how to really, really dial it down so that he can actually take time off, because the perception and the pressure is so great that it's very hard for him to really put up those guardrails. And I think the way that you've expressed things are just beautiful. I'm wondering, on the tech front, you love tech and you seem to know tech really well. What are some of your favorite productivity tools and why?
I mean, there's so many.
But for the average person, that would be perhaps.
Look, I think that people don't think about email as a productivity tool. They usually think of it as a time suck tool. It's probably the number one productivity tool that you could use. One of the biggest quick wins when we work with people is teaching them and their employees how to use email properly and get to inbox zero. Because most people are just so out of control with email and they don't know how to think about it, all the tricks, how to properly set up folders and search and snoozing and all these things. And it's not rocket science. In just a few hours, you can kind of train people and get them to zero. And more importantly, train them how they can keep zero. That alone usually saves 2 or 3 hours a week per person when we do that. So that's a really critical tool. Obviously, you've got a million tools that we could talk about. I like Loom a lot, Loom. It's a plugin on your computer or your browser. You click a button and it just does a quick recording. So it's really great for asynchronous communication. So if I want to tell Tanya on my team some idea I just had, and I want her to see my screen and my face, or maybe just see my face, or maybe just see my screen, I can click the button, select that, records it. I hit done, creates a URL to the video, and then I can pop that in Slack or whatever tool. And a large percentage of conversations I have is done like this, because coordinating schedules can be a pain in the ass.
This allows you almost to go in the old school way of popping into somebody's cubicle or to somebody's office and say, hey, take a look at this, except it's done asynchronous. So it's done whatever it's most convenient for you and them.
Yeah, which I think that whole pop into the cubicle thing, people to a certain degree like, but by and large, like that's pretty inefficient. People like Cal Newport, who wrote Deep Work, or Nir Eyal, who wrote Indistractable, like they're talking about, and you would know this even better than me, but if you're in a flow state and you get taken out of a flow state, it takes you like 15 minutes
Context
or I forget the exact number.
Sucks.
Yeah. So asynchronous communication allows people to kind of control their attention and do it on their schedule. And you avoid kind of the back and forth. On average, it takes around 7.2 back and forths for two people to find a time to meet. That's for external people. It's probably easier internal to a company because you can kind of view, but still it's a pain to do that. So asynchronous communication can be great. You could type a lot of this stuff too, but just sharing screen, or even if I'm just recording my face and my voice, especially for hybrid or distributed teams, you're still getting that interaction. People still can hear my voice, see my face, and it's more of a relationship than seeing an email or a text or a Slack message. So a lot of our communication. Now, brainstorming, there's definitely cases where you want to be doing live brainstorming, and we'll schedule those. But anything that's a report out where I just need to tell you something, and I just need to give you a 5-minute update, that doesn't need to be in that $300 an hour time slot, 9 a.m. on a Monday. I could give you that video and you could watch that video in the back of an Uber. You could watch it at 2x speed. And now you've just freed up $300 an hour time and spent it on $20 an hour, $50 an hour time slot. And that's what I call time arbitrage.
Love that idea so much. You know, one of the soul crushing aspects of work in this day and age is, and I think that if we were playing the Family Feud game of people at work, our number one answer would be, when it comes to soul crushing, would be the frequency of meetings. You hear it all the time, how disruptive they are and how ineffective they are. And yet this is common practice. I'm in meetings all day is what I hear. What would be your solution?
Well, a couple of things. One, really audit it. When you ask people, why do you have, especially recurring meetings? Most of the time they say, well, that's just because we've always had this meeting. So you've got to audit it. Audit the length, audit the number of people. Think about what could we do in advance. What pre-work could we do? So then instead of an hour meeting, maybe it could be 45 minutes. So maybe you could strip out all the report outs, do any of that on the meetings anymore. And any report outs, people give you a Loom video that needs to be watched as part of pre-work. Do that when you're walking around the park, watch that video, or you're in the back of an Uber. And now we just freed up 15 minutes. But similar to the banana peel, it's not just 15 minutes, it's 15 minutes. Maybe there's 4 people on there. So you've just freed up an hour of total time for the company. Maybe it's at 9 a.m. So that's an hour of a $300 time slot, let's just say. And how many times, if it's a weekly meeting and that happens 50 times a year, like you could think about the impact that that could make on a business. So really just audit it. You could really get aggressive and just delete all meetings every quarter off the calendar and just see what makes it back.
Love that idea. Almost like an allergy test. Just taking away foods and seeing,
you could allergy test your calendar. I like
that. You can borrow that or use it.
Yeah. All right.
Well, is there anything I should have asked but haven't yet asked?
I'm looking forward to coming back on the show around my book launch.
So talk about that briefly before we go.
Sure. I've been writing a book for the last 4 years. I know you mentioned my first book. I'll share a story actually about how I wrote that book. This book is called Come Up for Air: How Your Team Can Leverage Systems and Tools to Stop Drowning in Work. You can check out comeupforair.com. We have a lot of free resources and information about it. But I wrote it pre-pandemic for the last 4 years, and it's really all of our research and experience from working with literally thousands of companies on the common patterns that everyone faces in terms of not being efficient. And so we built a framework, and it's really remarkable. This framework, CPR, Communicate, Plan, Resource, it's a guide that kind of businesses need to give so that all of their employees are speaking the same language, so that they understand the purpose of each tool that they're using. Because that's one of the biggest problems. When you get hired, you go through an onboarding and you get explained your health insurance and your vacation days, but you don't get explained, hey, we use Slack and we use Slack in this way. Oh, and we use Asana and we use it in this way. And this is when we use it and how we use it. You kind of just say, oh yeah, we use all these tools, go get it. And different people have different ideas of when and how to use all these things. And you get this massive scavenger hunt. And when you align teams on best practice of not just how, but when to use these tools, we're seeing a half day to a full day per employee back very quickly. And so really proud of the book. HarperCollins was our publisher, coming out February 7th. And we put blood, sweat, and tears, like really, really meaty, practical book. My first book, which I believe you read, Idea to Execution. Yeah. So that was really the story of how we bootstrapped the company and grew it to kind of 7 figures and 150 people the first year by using technology in smart ways. I wrote the book though in 25 hours as opposed to this new book. I probably spent 2,500 hours or probably even more. But the story of how I wrote the book, I think, is interesting. So I did it in 25 hours because it was very efficient the way I wrote that book. So I knew that I wanted to write a book on how I launched my company. So every day I would go for a walk. And while I was walking, I would brain dump everything that kind of happened, the highlights of the day. What did I learn? What did we try? What failed? What worked? What am I thinking? And I recorded it in an app called Dropbox with a V that I connected to a Dropbox folder. And so every time I audio recorded, it went to a Dropbox folder. I then used Zapier to set up an automation that took the audio and then sent it to a editor who would listen to it, summarize it, and stick it in a Evernote notebook. After 9 months, I hired a company called Scribe Media that helps self-published authors. And I gave them the Evernote, and then they interviewed me probably for about 20 hours or so. And after about the 20 hours and the table of contents, and between that and the Evernote, I got a rough draft. And then I didn't read the rough draft. I stuck it in a Google Doc in suggestion mode. And I announced on my old podcast who would like to be a beta reader and give suggestions. And 12 people raised their hand. So I crowdsourced the editing amongst 12 listeners of the podcast. And then I gave it a read. And then, as you read, that was the book. And so it didn't hit New York Times bestseller, but we hit #1 Amazon in a bunch of categories around launch. And literally, it was like 25 hours of investment. So you can literally make anything more efficient, from making a smoothie to writing a book to how you collaborate in your company. You just have to be thinking about this and looking for those efficiency gains. But there are literally millions and millions every day.
Well, Nick, my brain is smiling right now. I've so enjoyed being with you and learning from you. And I know my listeners will derive huge benefits, possibly huge time savings and more life. Just can't thank you enough for what you're doing and what you're contributing in terms of your part to the plan. I know that you care about David Allen's axiom of the brain is for creating ideas, not holding them. And it seems like you've become a Jedi master at doing just that. So thanks for bringing your genius to the forefront so that we can all benefit.
Thank you so much for having me. Looking forward to being back.
Right on, man. This is Dr. Adam Dorsey thanking you for listening to Super Psyched. If you know anyone who might like it or who might benefit from listening, share it. And if you like the episode, please hit subscribe.